Want to make a quick $1 million in the cloud computing space? I have 5 ways to do it. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Cloud Computing Insider. This channel explores the ins and outs of cloud computing without an agenda or following into the narrative set by big tech marketing. We look at what works and what does not, and the actual value of this technology in a balanced, information-forward way. If that interests you, please subscribe, like, and comment. I'm your host, David Linthicum, author, speaker, B-list geek. Let's get started. So this is kind of an interesting topic because it's a common question that I get as people are looking for career advice in the cloud computing space. And there seems to be a couple of goals and objectives that I see from these individuals. First and foremost, and most people are just looking for a good job. They're looking for a secure career where they can make good money, get benefits, support their family, and carry on for many, many years in the cloud computing space and doing something that's normally just tactically focused, and which is perfectly fine. And there's a number of people who come up to me who are looking to become millionaires in this space. In other words, what's the best path to me making a lot of money in the cloud computing space? And I kind of respect that as well, because we want to be compensated well for what we do. Now, of course, there's some ethical things there, because I'm not a big fan of somebody who's just getting into a career path that is just there for the money, because I think people are going to be unhappy with that. And I think you have to kind of understand and like what you do. Cloud computing being one of them. Obviously, I love this space, been in it for 30 years, things like that. But also, it's very lucrative, and you're able to make a lot of money. So I urge you to kind of consider that. So if you're moving after cloud computing just for the money, there may be some downsides in terms of you not liking the space. And so you can, like people have said to me over the years, you can make $1 million and still be underpaid. So keep that in mind. So cloud computing has risen for the last 15 years. It's actually pretty old technology, and it's a lucrative space. You're able to make a good deal of money just because the skill sets are scarce normally. There's not a lot of people who understand cloud architecture, cloud security, cloud governance, cloud databases, things like that, in particular, cloud providers, AWS, Microsoft, and Google. And therefore, employers are willing to pay good money for those positions. And so a lot of people have parlayed that into a very good career path. And so these are paths that I have gone down. Every one we're going to list, I'm going to list 5 of them, ways in which you can become a cloud computing millionaire. And I've tried every one of them, and I'll list the upsides and the downsides, why you want to do it and why you may not want to do it. So first, and ones that I've done before, would be becoming a partner in a consulting firm specializing in cloud computing. Lots of large consulting firms out there. I call them the Big 6, Big 5, Big 3, whatever. We all know who those guys are. But there's also hundreds, if not thousands, of other smaller boutique consulting firms that focus on cloud computing. And I've started a few of those over the years and worked for a few of those over the years. And I work for the big firms as well. So if you're willing to put the time and effort into it, because it is a lot of time to spend on these jobs, you can get to a partner level position in some of these larger consulting firms, and they do pay or can pay as much as $1 million a year. So you can become a millionaire pretty quickly. The downside is they're normally very labor intensive. They're going to have you wear a lot of hats. You have to be good with the technology, but you also have to be good with relationship selling, and you have to be good with leading people as well as doing a bunch of other stuff at the same time. And so you're training people, you're mentoring people, you're doing volunteer work. They encourage kind of a rounded career path. But if you're able to do that and kind of play the game, they're going to compensate you well. And they compensate you in the form normally of cash. You are going to get some equity in the firm. But, this is one of those things where you're going to be there for a certain amount of time. Normally they have an age out. In other words, you get to a certain age and you have to move out of the firm. So there is going to be an end to that, but it's not like a startup company where you're obtaining massive amounts of stock and you're waiting for the go public exit. So the downsides in this area would be just the amount of work that is going to be required. So it's going to be fairly competitive. You're going to be competing with other firms, but you're also going to be competing in many instances with other partners as well. And you're going to have to build your expertise. You're going to have to build your book of business. You're going to have to build your teams or your networks within the company. And it does take somebody who's not just adept at cloud computing. I think that's the bare minimum, but someone who can do the internal networking, the selling, getting the leadership team, influence, advisory committees, and just have a huge rounded presence where you're not only known well within the firm, but you're known outside the firm. So in other words, you're doing the public thought leadership stuff as well as being highly regarded in the firm, and that'll get you to successes. And they pay bonuses. They pay really well, good benefits. And if you find the right firm, it's something that you want to hang on to for a long period of time. When I was working for the big consulting firms out there, I noticed that a lot of people were there for 20, 30 years. So they spent their entire career at the firm, which means that the firm is providing opportunities for them that make it difficult for them to find with other firms. So they're doing something good if they're keeping people that long. Again, though, it's playing a game. You're working inside a very competitive environment. Everything's to your metrics. Not only are they looking at how you sell within the organization, but actually how you do the relationship selling with clients. And the big 6 consulting firms are selling to the global 2,000 clients that are out there. And if they're looking at your performance, it's going to be a range of things, including your ability to do thought leadership, your ability to have leadership within your peers within the organization, your ability to sell deals, and how much value you're bringing back to the firm. And that's how you're compensated. So at the end of the year, they're going to say, okay, Dave or whomever, how much money have you made the firm in the last year? And if it's a lot, they're going to cut off a big bonus for you. And many times that bonus can be $1 million or more. So huge lucrative opportunities if you're willing to put in the work. And check out some of the big consulting firms and check out how you can get on the partnership track with those firms. So next is along the same lines, and that's starting your own cloud computing consulting firm to become a cloud computing millionaire. And this is basically doing the same sort of work like we just talked about, becoming a partner at a big consulting firm, but you're working for yourself. So you have a single proprietorship or an LLC that you set up, and it's just you within the firm, and you're accepting cloud computing contracts, and you're working these contracts yourself, and the money is going directly in your pocket. Obviously, there's some advantages and disadvantages of doing that. The advantage would be you work for yourself, so you can set your own schedule, set your own time, pick your clients. If you don't want to work for somebody, you don't have to. If you do want to work for somebody, you can figure out how to make that happen. No one's going to take the money. In other words, it doesn't go through another entity and then fed to you. It goes directly in your pocket. And so you can get to some fairly lucrative years in terms of billables in the cloud computing space. The downsides would be obvious. There's a risk to doing that. You may not be able to find the business. You're going to have to fund your own marketing efforts. You're going to have to spend a lot of time doing things which are basically working for free, the thought leadership stuff and social networking and all the things that are important to you being an independent consultant. And that's all investment in time and effort that's going to come back in more value within the firm. And the other thing is you need to figure out ways in which you're going to allow yourself to scale. If you look at making $1 million a year as a sole proprietor consulting firm, you're like, well, Dave, I'm doing the math. That's $5,000 an hour. Who's going to pay that? Absolutely nobody will. So normally if consultants are getting to that level of revenue, they're doing so by creating business that are able to scale. And normally that's going to be firm fixed price deals. So in other words, instead of selling hourly rate, where they're just doing time and materials on these particular engagements, they're selling a deliverable or delivering an architecture, or delivering a paper, or delivering some kind of value for a company around the cloud computing stuff, but they're doing so with a firm fixed price. And if you're able to do that, you're able to do that many times in the same month, because you're not having to bill your time and materials on the project. They're just paying you for the deliverable. So you can work and budget your time, and in many cases, you can do it faster than you would if you were doing some kind of an hourly contract and make more money in doing it. So you're able to force multiply, I guess, your time. The other opportunities that are lucrative as well is your ability to have an advisory firm where they're paying you a retainer. And some consultants get a retainer, and what the retainer means is that they have the ability to reach out and contact you, and they're going to pay that kind of through a subscription price over time. And so if you do 10, 15 of those, you're going to have a good deal of recurring revenue that's going to occur every month as companies are paying for you just to answer emails and just to answer phone calls around particular spaces. So there's lots of ways to scale your business, even if you're a single sole proprietor, if you're a cloud computing consultant. And you can certainly get to $1 million a year in revenue if you're smart. Just the downsides would be, this is not a 40-hour week job. This is you working weekends. This is you going to conferences on your dime. This is you spending a lot of money in marketing, many of which do not provide the results you think they're going to provide. And it's a lot of trial and error. It's fun to do. And I've started a few of these in my career, sold them. And also it's your asset. So you're able to sell it to another consulting firm or some other company for many millions of dollars like I did. And that's kind of cool that you built an entity, didn't exist, you built it up, and you did some great work, you had a lot of fun, and you're able to sell it for a lot of money, and that'll make you a millionaire. This is one of the ways to do it. Next way to become a cloud computing millionaire would be joining a growing cloud computing startup. So in other words, you're getting into the high-tech space, you're looking for some sort of a startup that's venture funded, and you're joining that startup either as a founder or someone who's closely after the founders, and you're taking a significant role. So your CTO, your chief cloud strategy officer, you're running DevOps, you're running R&D, whatever, and you're taking a significant valuable position within the company. In other words, they're depending on you to do a particular role and function, and for doing that, they're paying you a salary, which is normally going to be competitive, but the big thing is that they're paying you an equity position as well. They're giving you stock. And that's how you make the money with the startups. And normally this isn't going to be a year to get to your big payout. This is going to be 3 to 5 years that you're working at the company, normally for a little bit lower than market, but they don't starve to death. And you're betting on the fact that the company is going to build its value up over the next 3 to 5 years, and then some sort of an exit is going to occur. Either the company goes public, where you have the stock and you're able to sell it on the open market for a lot of money, hopefully, if the company is successful. And we're seeing lots of startups who are coming out as IPOs that are extremely successful and extremely lucrative for the people who are working within the company. Or your company is sold, which happens more than companies going public. So in other words, you sell your company to a larger company, your stock vests on the change of control, and next thing you know, you're a millionaire, which is pretty cool. I've done this a few times in my career. Most of them have panned out, some of them haven't, but it's a lot of fun because it's a little bit more bet and a little bit more risk in this kind of scenario versus the sole proprietor consulting stuff we just went over. You're always going to make money in that scenario. In this one, you're going to get a salary, but you may find that you're working for a company for 2 or 3 years and the company shuts its door or has some sort of a falling out with the market and just goes away, and you go away with just the money they paid you in salary, which means your equity positions that they paid you as well are basically going to be worthless. And it happens a lot. So you got to consider the risk in getting into this. In other words, make sure you study the company, study the market it's going into, study the role that you're able to have within the company and how you're going to bring value to the company in putting in that role, and what's the likely of them getting to a lucrative exit, when that's likely to occur, and when are you going to get your big check. So this is one way to become a cloud computing millionaire. So the next way to become a cloud computing millionaire is developing cloud-centric niche skills that are needed now and in high demand. And so this is a matter of you looking into the market. For example, agentic AI and generative AI, that are big hot skills to have in the cloud computing market now. Aligning your skills to have those skills, in other words, knowledge to back up the gigs, and your ability to sell yourself as someone who's able to provide core expertise in those particular niche opportunities. And they're normally able to pay you above market if you're able to do that. So sometimes that's just going to be an AI-based systems, and people are paying, multiple times what they would normally pay for cloud computing skills for people who know how to build agentic AI systems in the cloud or generative AI systems in the cloud. Cybersecurity, for example, is a niche skill. And really, it's a matter of you looking into the market and seeing what's coming and seeing what's going to be a hot space and aligning your skills and training yourself to align to that hot space. In other words, being a continuous learner and figuring out how your skills can match up to the market so you can make the most amount of money. And so obviously you're going to do that in working for consulting firms or working for businesses themselves. Any number of people that are willing to hire you to do these sorts of things. It may be a consulting role or it may be an employee role, but you're able to make the money because you have the skills that are in high demand that are very scarce out there. So obviously the risk would be you align yourself into something that's not necessarily as in demand. And so you make the bet that you're going to move into a particular skill set and suddenly it's not that big a deal in a couple of years, and you're not able to sell those skills for as much as you thought they would be. But some skills are, going to be hot skills for a long period of time. Our cloud architects who deal with multi-cloud scenarios, cloud architects who can do AI, particular certifications that seem to stand out. People who have an AWS certified solutions architect, for example, or Azure solutions architect expert, Google professional architect. Those are certifications that are going to be in high demand. It would be an example of a niche skill that's going to get you some additional money. Developing FinOps, Kubernetes, AI, ML, machine learning, and artificial intelligence expertise, and your ability to parlay those into particular jobs. These jobs are not as lucrative as some of the consulting jobs that we talked about. They're more lucrative than I think the startup jobs, but again, the startup jobs you get equity. These are jobs that normally pay between $250,000 and $500,000 a year. If you're able to get in at the right time with the right leverage, get the signing bonuses and get the performance bonuses, and they're willing to pay you that amount of money because they need this skill to be successful, to bring their projects to the next level. And you got it. And so you're there, and they're going to pay top dollar for that skill. This is a way to become a cloud computing millionaire. So the final way to become a cloud computing millionaire is investing in cloud-based products or services. So until now, we talked about different jobs and skills that you can have in those jobs, and getting your career and path and spending your own time in working in this space. Well, this is a different example of that. This is investing in cloud computing companies and getting the benefits of those investments. So talking about investing in software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, not just the big hyperscalers out there, AWS, Microsoft, and Google. We kind of know what the value of those things are, but new startup opportunities like CoreWeave, which is an AI system on demand. We talked about that here on the show. And other hot startups where you're able to get on the ground level of some of these IPOs, and you're able to parlay a smaller investment into a larger equity stake within those organizations. So you can even do things like developing your own cloud platform, for niche customer bases, and use that as an investment opportunity for other folks to invest in your company. You can look at investing in solutions in particular spaces, and different cloud providers that are out there basically either offering private equity opportunities, in other words, investing privately in them. And there's organizations out there like Keiretsu and angel fund organizations that allow you to do that, or cloud computing providers that are trading on the public markets. And could be lots of different opportunities here into partnering with developers, the ability to join some sort of an investment firm or private equity firm, things like that. And this is basically you putting your money and your time into cloud computing companies. Are going to take their business to the next level, and you're going to get your investment back plus many times. In many cases, people are making 100 times their investment if making the right moves and investing in particular cloud computing technologies. And so you can take $100,000 and turn it into $1 million in a very short period of time. And we've all heard about the tech startups out there. Obviously, the downside would be making the wrong investments, and you can do that in the stock market fairly easy. So you invest in something that's not going to be a lucrative return on the investment over time, and you're going to find that you lose money and on the deal, versus making money. That happens out there, but you have to kind of be willing to understand that the risk that you're putting into the market is what they're paying for. And so in other words, if we're able to put $100,000 at risk, they're going to pay $1 million back on that $100,000 in a few years because you had confidence in that particular business. But there's certainly many instances where you buy, publicly traded stock or, stock in a private company, and the investment just doesn't return what you need it to. But this is a way that I see many leverage to become a cloud computing millionaire. In this case, You're not working as hard as you would if you're a consultant or working for a startup or working as a partner at a big consulting organization. This is just you making wise investments. But this is an opportunity that people can leverage as well. And so if you have a bit of money, this may be the path that you look to take. So just to summarize, some of the ways to become a cloud computing millionaire would be becoming a partner in a consulting firm, the good and bad aspects of that, launching your own consulting business where you're basically running your own sole entrepreneurship, taking pivotal roles in startups where you get a big equity stake and you turn that equity stake into many millions of dollars, growing your skills for high demand cloud roles, and investing in cloud-based products and services as an investor. So can't stress this enough. This is not only you looking to make money, which I believe everybody has the right to have a lucrative career and make lots of money, out in the space, but also look for things that you're going to be good at and things that are going to make you happy. I think that's going to be important as well, because if it motivates you, you get up every morning and you're happy to be doing something, then your ability to make a lot of money in doing that thing is just going to be a bonus. And I can't stress enough, make sure you find the right path for yourself and you're doing the right things for your own mental health, your own personal health, and helping society in general. This is about all of us working together to make everybody millionaires. And one of the things I enjoy doing within my career is I was able to have lots of people who work for me over time that I was able to turn into millionaires. And I hope that's going to be you as well. So, let me know how it's working out for you, what you're able to do, what you're able to pull off, what's working well, what's not working well, and I'll provide the feedback here on the show. So don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos on this channel. Also check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn Learning courses, and of course my Generative AI Architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers, and my other YouTube show, AI Insights and Innovation, on the Cube Research YouTube channel, and finally my latest book, An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, you guys stay very safe. Later.